Welcome back to Clash of Culture. We continue our 2023 college football preview. This is actually kind of a shock drop, talking about the college football realignment. Lots of movement in the last couple of days, so we absolutely have to talk about it. So a little bit off of our normal path of videos, just news that's happening in the college football world that we have to talk about. But like always, before we get to football, we want to thank you guys for all the love, all the support that you guys given us so far. We are on our way to 1,000 subscribers and hope to get there soon. Also, live video dropping August 13th. That is going to be at 5 Eastern time. Please tune in if you can. That video, that live is going to depend on fan interaction. So we appreciate you guys. We love you guys. Thank you guys. Please tune in. Let us know what you want us to talk about because we're going to be off the cuff then. But with that being said, Stephen, what's your thoughts on the latest news with this realignment?
So I'm going to go ahead and pull it up on the screen just so that way everybody can see it while we talk about it. But so this is a graphic that was pulled up obviously, Dad, you sent me this graphic. This is how, based off what we know now, what college football would look like, not this season, but the following season. And originally, me and you had conversation off camera and not being recorded. And I kind of said I disliked it. I didn't like the way that college football was going. It screwed up rivalries. It was all for money. And I still stand by that. But once I look at the graphic and I know that we're moving to a 12-team playoff, I kind of like it a little bit. The reason being, I look at better in-conference matchups. So obviously, we're talking about 5 to 10 years from now when rivalries start to form. When you look at a team like Ohio State and USC, who still have a little bit of history, but when they have to play each other, every other year, and that game really makes a big impact on who makes it to that playoff. I think that helps. And the other reason why I kind of like it is because it was kind of known that the SEC and the Big Ten were the better conferences. In my opinion, SEC is the best conference and it's not close, but I think the Big Ten is not too far behind. They are still a really good conference. So I don't look at them as a cupcake kind of thing. But when you look at the Pac-12 of recent years, not including this year, as well as the ACC, it's kind of been top heavy. And then when you look at the Big 12, there was a lot of times where obviously last year was a lot of competitive games. This year we look to see that there's going to be a lot of competitive games. But of previous years, the ACC, Big 12, and Pac-12 weren't as loaded as the other two conferences. So when it came to deciding who makes the playoffs, it was so hard to juggle a one-loss SEC team who didn't make the conference championship over a Big 12 team who may have won the conference championship. It was so hard to do that. So now when you bring in 2, 3, 4 teams into the Big 10 and the SEC, and we expand to the 12-team playoff, I think we're going to see 3, maybe even 4 teams from one conference get in just based off of strength of schedule that they're playing. So I like it, but what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah. So first thing, I think there's some things still to be kind of figured out. What happens with Notre Dame? What happens with the 4 teams that are left in the Pac-12? Does the Pac-12, and there's 8,000 rumors out there, the Pac-12 possibly combining with the Mountain West. There's some talk of both the SEC and the Big Ten trying to get up to 20 teams and what that looks like. There's some talk of trying to poach some ACC teams, which I don't think is going to happen. I believe the ACC is in talks with Cal and Stanford to try to maybe add them. What I don't like is the conferences kind of used to be regionally based, right?
Exactly.
And a lot of those rivalries also had to do with location. So now you got the Big Ten, which is now all over the place, adding 4 teams from the West Coast. Everybody is everywhere. So we're broken up some rivalries, and it's going to change what college football as we know it, I think, along with the 12-team playoff. But like you said, to the 12-team playoff, I think if we got down to 4 power conferences, and they were all really good conferences, it's going to make better football for the playoffs. Now, I guess what I would say going back on that statement, my concern is I think it will water down the regular season a little bit. I think I grew up in an era where one regular season loss could mean the end of your season in terms of national championship aspirations. I think now you're going to see two lost teams in that 12-team playoff, especially if you are a conference champion in a conference. And I'm going to take the Big Ten. Obviously, I'm a Big Ten fan. If you're in the conference with a USC, Oregon, and you're Ohio State and you lose to those teams, but you still win the conference, you're probably still going to be okay. This is going to change the landscape of college football. Like I said, I pros and cons. Overall, I don't agree with it. I wish it didn't happen. I wish there was still that regional rivalry, love, the regional aspect of conferences. But we're going to see. We're going to see how it shakes out. And like I said, I think there's still some moves to be made, and we'll see what this looks like. I think by the time we get to 2024, college football is going to look vastly different than anything we've seen in the past.
Yeah, and I know you said there's a bunch of rumors. I wouldn't mind seeing those bottom 4 teams in the Pac-12 combined with the Mountain West. I think it makes the Mountain West.
But if they do that, when you're looking at those 4 teams and then whoever from the Mountain West, is that still a Power 5 conference?
No, I don't think it would be a Power 5 conference, but I would say this. I think if those 4 teams joined, I think at minimum, the winner of that conference should get a spot in the playoffs. With it being a 12-team playoff, I think at minimum the winner, unless the winner is 8-4 or 9-3 or something crazy like that. But I think if the winner is 10-2, 11-1, they should get in. I'm not sure if they've announced if there's going to be a playoff committee for the 12-team playoff. I'm assuming there would be.
I'm assuming there. I have not heard. That's a good question.
Just because I know there's going to be the guaranteed spots by conference champs or whatever, and then the at-large. So I just don't know. Like I said, there could be a kind of a committee how we do now where, let's say the Mountain West Conference has a conference champion who's 10-2, but then there's, a team from the Big 12 who's 9-3 who didn't make it to the playoff or make it to the conference championship. Then it's like, okay, who do we want to get in? So I would hope that there's some sort of committee with that. But I had a conversation in the comment section yesterday with the guy. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but he basically told me that the Big Ten, and you're a Big Ten fan, so I want to know your opinion.
Okay.
The Big Ten, with adding these teams, is a better conference than the SEC. Do you believe that?
I think time will tell. I think obviously you've added some good teams that are championship aspiration teams. So when you add that to what the Big Ten already had, and let's just go team for team, or not team for team, but team that I think in the next 10 years could win a championship. I'm going to go Big Ten first. So you say Michigan, right? Ohio State, Oregon. I'll give Penn State. I'm going to go USC, and I'll say Washington.
So
When I do that in the SEC, I'm going to say Alabama, Georgia, LSU, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Texas, and Texas A&M, kind of roughly with Jimbo. So what are we talking about, 6 to 7?
Yeah.
And there's some teams I left out in both conferences that could be very good. SEC I still think is the king of college football. And I think the SEC is going to make some moves. I think both conferences wanted to get, both the Big Ten and the SEC wanted to get up to 20 teams. SEC's right now, as we currently project to 2024, is at 16. Big Ten's at 18. I think both are going to add teams. So I suspect that this is going to change some. But right now, I think SEC is the king of college football. I think the Big Ten is going to have the ability to prove their mantle toe-to-toe with the SEC, especially if they can win, if they can run off a couple of championships.
Yeah, so he basically was saying, and when I say he, I mean the guy who was commenting yesterday, basically saying, based on the coaches poll, that the Big Ten has obviously Ohio State, Michigan. He was including Pac-12 teams in the Pac-12. And using that for the argument for the Big Ten, but you can't do that because that's not the same ranking that they would have.
Yeah, because we don't know what these teams are going to look like in 2024. So I think we would probably not really be able to have that debate, honestly, until about 2029.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Until we have about 5 years of seeing these teams in the new 12-team playoff format. I don't think we can truly have that argument. But, obviously, the part of being a fan is projecting. I think the Big Ten is going to be very good. I think you just added four teams that are very, very good at college football. You know, and I don't know what the SEC is going to do because I don't know what else is out there to really add, especially if you assume the ACC is all going to stick together. I don't think the rest of the Pac-12 teams or any other team that I guess you would call a free agent outside of Notre Dame really moves the needle much. So if the SEC could add Notre Dame, now we're talking about something. But I don't know what other moves could be made that would really move the needle at this point.
To be honest, I would like to see Notre Dame in the ACC. I know they've had a lot of ties with the ACC during the COVID year. They played with them. I
think they have a mandate to play so because their basketball is played in the ACC. I think they have a mandate to play so many ACC teams each year.
Yeah, they play a lot of ACC teams this year. I would like to see Notre Dame in the ACC. I think it makes the ACC significantly better. I would say if Notre Dame joined the ACC, they'd be on the same level as the Big 12, maybe a little step under. I think of the four conferences, the ACC would be last. But I think the Big 12 is a little slept on as well. I mean, when you look at Kansas State, you look at Baylor, adding Colorado now. Obviously, you added UCF, Houston,
they
BYU.
had Arizona and Arizona State as well.
Yeah, so I mean, I think they're going to be decent. Obviously, I don't have them anywhere near the Big 10 or the SEC, but I do think that's a great conference. And then you add the two-time Pac-12 champion in Utah, can't forget them. So you add them as well. That is a very deep conference. I think there's a bunch of teams in there that are going to be very competitive year in and year out. But I mean, I like I said, going into this, I was against it because of the whole rivalry situation. And I mean, you have a team like Texas and USC who played in the national championship game. Texas was in the Big 12, USC was in the Pac-12, and now neither of them are in the conference they started in.
Well, and I mean, so it's weird. The only other thing, and I don't think this gets talked about enough, but for those West Coast Pac-10 former teams, like not half of, 7/10 of your conference is on the East Coast. So now you got to travel to games and try to, and I mean, so all of your road games, well, not all, but most of your road games are going to be 4 or 5 hours in terms of travel, in terms of a flight and a different time zone and trying to adjust your body to that. That could put those West Coast teams at a disadvantage, especially on road games. You know, it's different when you got to do it once or twice a year when you're going to have to do it 6, 7, or 5, 6 times a year. That's going to weigh on those teams, I think, a little bit.
No, definitely. And I know I saw, dang it, I forget what coach it was. And I reposted it on my Instagram story. Let me see if it's still there, if it's gone. It's gone. But it was basically a post, and it was by a coach. 1 second, I will find it right now. So it was the Missouri head coach. And he basically, I would put it up on here, but it would take too long. But he basically was saying, like, you added these teams. So you added USC to the Big 10. Did we take into account the smaller sports that are going to have to do these traveling? Did we take it? Yeah. So did we take into account
the student athletes? I didn't think about that.
And he also said, did we take into account the student athletes? USC, let's say USC has to travel to, I don't know, Michigan State to go play a game, and then they got to come back the next day and prepare for an exam or prepare for
I mean, you're talking about something like volleyball or tennis or soccer.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting when you put it that way, because I think as a college football fan, when I think of, conference realignment, the first thing I think of is football. I don't think about tennis. I don't think about golf and like baseball and things like that. So all that matters, and I think we're kind of blind to that. And money makes the world go round, I guess you'd say, and money made all of this happen. So I'm kind of interested to see how that plays out, because that is a very good point. Like, what happens to those students who don't have the funding the football players have to get on a private jet or to get on a private charter plane? Some of these programs
they're going to have to.
Literally, some of these programs fly commercial. So if they're going to be flying back and they, like I said, they have a test they need to get back to or something, I just think it's going to be kind of crazy to kind of see how it plays out. And just before we leave, I know there's talks about Clemson moving to the Big 10, and I think that's what kind of like made me like okay, I can rock with this a little bit. And the reason why, for those of you who don't know, I live in the Pacific Northwest, so I live in this side of the country, and obviously you have Washington and Oregon, who just joined the Big Ten. So hypothetically, if Clemson were to join that Big Ten, I could see my Tigers play every now and then. So hopefully that happens. If all this shakes out.
There is talk, and not sure how true or how close it was, but in the Big Ten trying to get to 20 teams, there was talk of them trying to get Clemson and Florida State from the ACC. Again, not sure how true that is, but let me say this. If that did happen, and I'm fingers crossed, I hope it does. I think at that point in time, I think you could easily say that the Big Ten is the best conference in college football.
Yeah, I would agree. But I think it would make more sense for Clemson and Florida State to join the SEC. But obviously, I'm talking about geographically, especially Florida State, obviously, maybe even Miami. So we'll just have to see how that goes. But I would like to see the ACC stay put. Another thing before we head out, it's kind of weird. As a Clemson fan, you can call me what you want. You could say, like, I'm running from the grind, whatever. I'd rather stay in the SEC. I mean, I'm sorry, the ACC. And be happy with being 11-1, 12-0, knowing that I'm going to get a playoff spot every year, than going and joining the SEC and Big Ten and potentially going 7-5 and 8-4 because I'm playing powerhouses every year.
Yeah, the path in the ACC. Well, when you compare it to the SEC and the Big Ten, again, looking at 2024, really, the ACC is probably, if I was some good new team, that's probably the conference I want to be in, right? Like you mentioned, that path is probably going to be a little bit easier, especially when you consider a bunch of teams in the ACC have been up and down. Like there are very few teams that you can say have been good, really, even if you count the last 5 years. Florida State has been up and down. Literally, the only team that has been consistently good in the ACC over the last, like I said, even 5 years is Clemson. I mean, you could say the same thing about the Big 12, whereas in the SEC and the Big 10, I think there are a couple of teams that you say, man, perennially, I don't know if I said that right, and I know they're going, whatever, y'all do whatever.
You're good.
But there's some teams that are good, especially when you add Oregon and USC, and those are going to be tougher conferences. And right now, the ACC is probably the easiest path.
Yeah, definitely. But that is our thoughts on the college football realignment that's scheduled to happen, in the next year or so. Those of you guys who stuck around this long, please do us a favor: like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell. As you guys are seeing this video, we are creeping up on 900 subscribers. We started at 100 at the beginning of June. So, I mean, 80% of you guys, 90% of you guys have come during this college football preview series. So we thank you guys so much. We're going to be hitting 1,000 pretty soon, giving away a signed Heisman jersey. And again, we have a live show coming in the next 2 days, Sunday, August 13th, 5 p.m. Eastern. Make sure you guys are there. It's going to be super fun. But we'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace out.